All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting set of sources today, all zeroing in on, well, one of Dragon Ball's most terrifying villains.
Definitely terrifying. We're talking
Yeah.
about Cell, Dr. Gero's bio-android creation. Not just strong, but engineered for horror, really.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive is to trace that whole chilling evolution, from that hidden larval start all the way to his so-called perfect form. We want to unpack the genetics, the strategy shifts, and the impact he had.
He's fascinating because he's this engineered weapon, but he evolves, he changes. It's a story of biology meeting calculated terror.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. Where did this nightmare actually begin?
Well, the sources are clear. It wasn't in the main timeline we usually follow. Cell's actual creation happened in an alternate future. Dr. Gero started it, but it was his supercomputer that finished the job after Gero was gone.
And the way Cell was made, it's
Yeah.
totally different from the other androids. Right?
Completely. No cybernetics here, not like 17 or 18. Cell was built using cellular recombination, basically pieced together from the DNA of the best fighters found by Gero's little tracking device.
And that list of fighters, it's insane. The core sources mention Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Frieza, and King Cold, too. Talk about a potent mix.
A real who's who of power and, frankly, tyranny. And it's interesting, the Funimation dub apparently adds Nappa, Krillin, and Gohan into that mix in its explanation. Makes for an even broader genetic base.
So his first form, it wasn't the Cell we see walking around, was it?
No, not at all. The sources describe this grotesque, large larval stage, barely mobile, very insect-like.
Insectoid, yeah. Some sources even say it looked a bit like that remote tracking device, maybe those V-shaped horns.
That's right, a feature that kind of sticks with him. Then this larva, it hitches a ride back in time using Trunks' time machine.
Imagine being Trunks and finding that brewing in your machine.
Yeah, definitely not what he expected. So, arriving in our present timeline, after gestating, he sheds that larval skin and emerges as Imperfect Cell. And this is where he becomes an active threat.
Still very insect-like, though, right? But upright now.
Yeah.
The descriptions paint a picture, horrifying look, segmented armor, those horns, a beak mouth, and the tail. Can't forget the tail with the stinger.
Absolutely key. That stinger for absorption. There are small physical differences noted, like 3 toes, but sometimes 3 fingers, sometimes 5, depending on manga or anime. But the overall look is pretty nightmarish.
And his goal is crystal clear at this point.
Utterly singular. Absorb androids 17 and 18 to achieve perfection. That's it. That's his whole motivation.
But he's not just a monster crashing around. The sources highlight his personality here. He's cautious, sneaky, almost cunning.
Very much so. He knows he can't beat the androids head on yet.
Right.
So what does he do? He hides. He absorbs energy from unsuspecting humans to build his strength. He's calculating.
He's even willing to put his main goal on hold temporarily, right? If someone like Piccolo or Android 16 becomes a direct threat.
Exactly. Survival and removing obstacles comes first. Very tactical thinking.
But even then, that arrogance starts peeking through, doesn't it? Like telling Piccolo his whole plan.
Yeah, a bit of early hubris there. He's so sure he's going to win eventually, he can't resist gloating. It makes him seem less like a machine and more like a conscious, strategic being, which makes the whole absorption thing even creepier.
It really does. It's not just energy drain. It's consuming life consciously.
So that drive for perfection becomes this relentless hunt, zeroing in on Android 17 first. The sources really emphasize this almost primal hunger he has.
And he uses that cunning we talked about to succeed, right? Outmaneuvering Piccolo, using his absorption.
He does. He manages to corner 17, and that leads to the big transformation. The sources call the absorption itself pretty visceral. It's not just a power-up. It fundamentally changes him.
It's a semi-perfect cell, and the change is pretty dramatic.
Oh, yeah. He gets much bigger, more muscular, and definitely more humanoid. He actually loses the wings he had in his imperfect form. His eyes look more normal. But he still doesn't have a nose, and the mouth is quite distinct. Still insectoid elements, but closer to, like, a hulking monster man. Feet change, too, more boot-like.
But the biggest change seems to be his personality.
That's what the sources really focus on here. He becomes way more arrogant, narcissistic, rash, impatient. The caution seems to evaporate. It's all brute force now.
You see him throwing tantrums, right? Blowing up islands when he can't find 18 immediately. Such a contrast to the stealthy, imperfect cell.
A huge contrast. And apparently some guidebooks mention he genuinely believes he's the strongest on Earth in this form. Just pure, overwhelming self-confidence.
Which must have made getting pummeled by Vegeta in that ascended Super Saiyan form incredibly frustrating for him.
Oh, absolutely infuriating. He was totally outclassed.
Right.
And this is where that cunning, maybe buried under the ego, makes a comeback. He can't win with power.
So he manipulates Vegeta.
Exactly. Plays right into Vegeta's pride, that Saiyan need for a bigger challenge. He basically dares Vegeta to let him absorb 18, just to see true perfection. It's brilliant in a horrifying way.
And you have to wonder how much of that arrogance comes from the absorbed DNA. Vegeta's pride, Frieza's ego. It seems like those traits really flare up here.
That's a strong suggestion in the sources, yeah. And the anime even shows him using Vegeta's moves, like the Gaelic gun and a version of the Big Bang attack. It visually reinforces that connection.
Okay, so 17 is absorbed. Now it's all about finding Android 18 for that final step.
The final piece of the puzzle. And the sources paint this as a really tense moment, like the whole world is waiting.
And it's Vegeta's own arrogance, ironically, that lets it happen. A trait cell seems to have inherited and cranked up to 11. Vegeta lets him do it.
He does. And then, Perfect Cell emerges. Dr. Gero's ultimate dream, or nightmare, realized. The sources describe his appearance as, well, stunning, but also deeply unsettling.
He looks completely different again. Fully humanoid, sleek, almost elegant. Gone are the monstrous features. Normal nose, mouth, those purple stripes like Frieza had. The wings are back, boot-like feet, horns pointing up.
And the tail's retracted, right? Only the stinger comes out when needed.
Yeah, it's a very refined look. Interestingly, sources mention he's actually a bit shorter and lighter than Semi-Perfect Cell. It's like refinement, not just bulking up.
And his attitude matches the look, initially at least. Calm, super confident.
Serene, almost, but radiating immense power, and he proves it immediately, just effortlessly handling Super Vegeta and future Chunks. No contest, pure, terrifying control.
So what's his personality like now? It seems like a real mix.
He really is. The sources describe him having Piccolo's cunning, Vegeta's pride, even a bit of Goku's laid-back attitude before a fight, but then layered with Frieza's smug cruelty and sadism, and always that Saiyan desire for a good battle underneath it all.
It's interesting the point sources make about him lacking purpose at first. Like, okay, I'm perfect, Gero wanted me to kill Goku, now what? Right. Killing Goku suddenly seemed insufficient. So, like Goku, he pivots to wanting to test his perfection against strong opponents, just for the thrill of it.
Which leads directly to the Cell games.
Exactly. It wasn't just about proving his power, it was a show. A twisted celebration of himself, broadcast to the world to inspire terror, while also giving him the fights he craved.
Toriyama apparently suggested King Piccolo's cells influence that desire to terrorize and, put it all on TV.
And even in the fights, he holds back at first, doesn't he? Wants to savor the challenge, like a Saiyan.
He does, but he's also brutally quick to finish off anyone he deems unworthy. That Frieza influence, maybe, you see both sides.
His reaction when Goku forfeits his telling too, he's not happy, right? He's outraged. He wanted the fight, not just the win.
Yeah, discontent is putting it mildly, and ultimately that arrogance, just like Vegeta's, sets up his downfall against Gohan, pushing him too far.
So, perfection's achieved. He needs entertainment. Enter the Cell games, this grand, terrible spectacle. Audacious is the word. A global tournament, broadcast live, where the prize for losing is, well, death. All for Cell's amusement and to showcase his perfect power.
And his performance.
Yeah.
Just dominant. Toying with Goku, showing off all those techniques he inherited. Kamehameha, special beam cannon.
He's got the whole moveset. And then, arguably one of the most disturbing things he does, creating the Cell Juniors.
Yeah. Little miniature cells spawned just to torture the other fighters. It's pure sadism made manifest.
Absolutely horrific. It's not just power, it's cruelty. And apparently in Xenoverse 2, he's shown being really harsh towards them if they fail him. Adds another layer to his twisted nature.
But then Gohan steps up and the perfect cell starts to crack. Facing defeat, he resorts to
self-destruction. A last desperate, furious act, trying to take the Earth with him. It's such a hot-headed move, completely losing that cool composure he had.
But it doesn't kill him.
Nope. Thanks to that core cell surviving and the regeneration. Plus a massive Zenkai boost, he comes back as Super Perfect Cell. Looks the same, basically, but now he's got that crackling Super Saiyan 2 style aura.
And this form seems even more unhinged.
Definitely. The sources describe his ego going through the roof. He's more deranged, shouting constantly, weird facial tics, just incredibly rash and angry, willing to blow up the whole solar system in his rage. The anime narrator even calls him a demented demon.
And because he regenerated, he thinks he's immortal now, right?
Yeah,
Truly perfect.
he genuinely believes it. That Zenkai boost convinced him he couldn't be killed except in battle. Total delusion setting in.
Which makes his final defeat by Gohan even more impactful.
Yeah,
He just can't process it.
He completely loses it. Screaming, confused, furious. He cannot comprehend being surpassed. He is perfection in his mind. It's impossible. Very reminiscent of Frieza's breakdowns, that inability to accept defeat.
But despite his defeat, his legacy is huge. The Cell games pushing Gohan, he left a massive scar.
Undeniably. A defining moment for that era of Dragon Ball.
So beyond the forms, the battles, it all comes back to that unique foundation, right? The genetics. He was literally built to be a superweapon.
Absolutely. And you see it in his abilities.
Yeah.
It's not just raw power. He's got the strength, speed, durability, sure, but also mimicking voices, mastering everyone's techniques.
The regeneration from Piccolo is huge. Being able to come back from almost anything as long as that core cell, a nucleus in his head, survives.
And the Zenkai boosts from the Saiyan and Frieza cells. Every near-death experience just made him stronger. That's why he felt invincible after blowing himself up.
Plus Frieza's ability to survive in space, needing no air or sustenance, and theoretically having the DNA of Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, gave him insight into how they fight, their weaknesses.
You can even see hints in his physical design, can't you? Sources mention the Namekian head shape influence in the later forms. Frieza race traits like the spots, ears, maybe the jawline.
It's all woven together. And we shouldn't forget Gero's influenced the Red Ribbon Army data in his brain. Though sources seem to differ a bit on whether avenging the army remained his goal after perfection or if his own ego took over.
Yeah, his priorities seem to shift. And even things from games like Xenoverse 2 add little tidbits. Apparently, he still enjoys absorbing things even when he doesn't need to. Maybe likes training others sometimes. Kind of a weird Goku Piccolo echo. And hilariously blames Frieza's cells for his loss to Gohan. Always someone else's fault.
Classic villain move.
So yeah, it's quite the journey we've traced. From that hidden larva, through the cunning hunter, the arrogant powerhouse, to that final, chillingly elegant, perfect form.
He was such a unique threat, that mix of biological horror, the smarts, the sheer power, and an ego that just ballooned with every transformation. He really pushed the heroes to their absolute limit.
The genetic engineering, the drive, the cell games. Yeah, he's definitely one of Dragon Ball's most memorable and impactful villains. A true nightmare, built piece by piece.
And thinking about it all, looking back through the sources, it leaves you with a question, doesn't it? Given that he was artificial, engineered with all these conflicting traits baked in, the cunning versus the arrogance, the desire for a challenge versus pure sadism, was his defeat kind of inevitable? Was there an inherent instability in his design? Or was it really just those personality flaws cranked up by his engineered ego and the shock of being surpassed that ultimately did